My name is Oleg, and this is my show, Slavic Words, where we explore the traditional knowledge embedded in Slavic words and their origins. Today, we will be exploring a trinity of Slavic identity, with the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. You know what I mean. Today, we're talking about the word potato. But what is a potato? A potato is a plant that makes a tuber underground. That's the part we eat. For about 8,000 years, Incas and their descendants have been growing potatoes adapted for all sorts of weather conditions. Because when they're heated, they're delicious. For more on the Inca civilization and about the history of potatoes, I really recommend the podcast Fall of Civilizations. I'll put a link in the description. Our English word for potato comes from the Spanish word patata, which is based on the Carib word batata, and it traditionally meant sweet potato. This interchange of languages happened in the historical period where subjects of colonial empires all decided to get into boats and rob the whole world very violently, like the pirates they are. So over time, the word potato came to be associated with the white, bland variety of potato, which dominates the European imagination. As the dissemination of potatoes was a function of extractive colonial projects, it took a while for potatoes to reach Slavic peoples. This happened in the mid to late 1700s, and Slavic people at the time were mostly Russian peasants or divided subjects between the Prussian, Austro-Hungarian, and Ottoman empires. So in this context of ubiquitous colonial subjugation, the Czechs were one of the first Slavic peoples to interact with potatoes. Quick history: there used to be a significant amount of Czech lands under Prussian-German rule. These lands were called Brandenburg in German and Brandybor in Czech. Potatoes were likely introduced to Czechs via Brandybor, which is why the Czech word for potato is brambor. This is a unique situation, and I needed to tell you that history, because this establishes the pattern for potatoes being introduced to Slavic peoples via German-speaking colonizers through imperial projects or through trade. And this is reflected in the Bulgarian, Ukrainian, and Russian words for potato, respectively kartof, kartopia, and kartoffel. And these were based on the German word for potato. Similarly, a German slang word for potato, krombier, gave us the words krompir and kompir in Slovenian, the Serbo-Croatian languages, and in Macedonian. The word kartoffel itself is likely based on the Italian word tartufo, 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 referring to truffles. You see, German colonizers at the time had only recently warmed up to the idea of actually eating potatoes and not just using them as decorative houseplants, which is why Italian merchants did well to, snazz up the potato by giving them a truffle analog. So the Germans themselves were just barely okay with them, and then they're like, okay, Slavs, you guys got to grow these things. Here you go, we're selling them. It's happening. And because these were new plants to different regions that were being enforced or supported by different imperial powers, there were several peasant uprisings regarding potatoes. In Russia and the Balkan in general, there was a widespread belief that potatoes were actually demon heads, and that growing them would curse their lands. And this was supported by several churches which compared the potato to the fruit of original sin. For example, here's a quote from Tsar Nicholas's secret police in the article From Bread to Potatoes. Link in the description. Ignorant allegations to the effect that the potato is a cursed fruit whose cultivation brought about God's refusal to bless the Russian land with fertility were the cause of disobedience of the peasants of Moscow, who, in some villages, destroyed entire potato fields. Resistance of imperial power eventually gave way and a genuine love for potatoes grew amongst Slavic peoples. This shift happened through extensive bionutritional testing carried out by qualified agricultural technicians. Yeah, we ate them and they were great. I saw a joke in a Serbian movie once where some Austro-Hungarian colonial officer guy was giving a speech, and he was taking credit for so many things that the Austro-Hungarian Empire did. He said, "To the Balkan, I brought literacy, culture, and potatoes." Only the potatoes took. Potatoes were a hit, and we even get actual Slavic words to describe them. Resident special boy language Polish and guest special boy language Slovak use the words ziemniak and zemjak to refer to potatoes. And this means something like earthling, and I absolutely love these words. They're fantastic. Bravo, special boys. But this just scratches the surface. You see, Slavs love potatoes. And a problem that I personally have is that I get my words for this show from Google. And Google gets its words from official dictionaries. And official dictionaries are associated with nation states. And nation states are relics of an imperial past that don't neatly correspond to ethno-linguistic groups. Where am I going with this? I grew up with another joke about potatoes, this time a Ukrainian one. The joke is that Ukrainians have 40 different words for potato and no word for fun. This might be, there's some element of truth to this. I don't know if we have 40 words, and there are words that vaguely mean fun, or at least entertainment. But when I tell this story to my English friends, the first thing they ask is, what, so are they talking about different varieties of potato? No. Are they talking about different ways of making potatoes? No, just potato. Well, how do you get so many different words for the same thing? You see, Ukraine has more than 40 million people today. And although the territory has been relatively consistent throughout history, it's actually made of dozens of ethno-linguistic groups. So different words for potato pop up in different localities. Here's a map that I found on Pinterest. Link in the description. And I can't attest to its geographical accuracy, but I've definitely heard some of these words for potato, so let's go through it. Baraboya, barabuya, bulba, krumplia, mandeburka, kartoplia, kartoflia, buns, ripa, bib. The point that I'm trying to make here is that unlike the English word for potato, which has its origin in extractive colonialism, words like krompir and kartoplia have their origin in colonial implementation, where imperial forces introduced an alien crop to promote the profitability of Slavic colonies that had an agricultural base. Personally, my ancestors fled the terrible social conditions that were created in the Austro-Hungarian colonies that are now Ukraine. My great-grandmother would say, the forest was privatized for the crown. The lands were privatized for the crown. People didn't have enough to eat. People didn't have wood to burn. So they started dying. And the lucky could flee. In my small way, I want to remind my listeners that German words like Kartoffel aren't inherently better to Slavic words. After all, Kartoffel is a German mistranslation of an Italian marketing gimmick. I challenge my listeners to remember the colonial origins of our words, but also to know that the value of the potato, at least, isn't tied to the word that it's attached to, but the value of potatoes is in our relationship with our plants, with our foods, and with our lands. Please join me as I continue this journey of exploring the traditional knowledge embedded in Slavic languages on a non-nation specific basis. Thanks for watching. Congratulations, you made it to the end of the video. If you liked the video, please like it on the YouTube, share it, or leave a comment if there is a word that you'd like me to explore. For this week's musical recommendation, I want to take you to a song from roughly where my ancestors moved to from Ukraine, as I mentioned in the video. They moved to the border region between Austria-Hungary and the Ottoman Empire. So when the Austro-Hungarians got Ottoman lands, they populated that land with its excess colonial possessions, my ancestors. And this region goes from Croatia to Bosnia to Serbia. And in this region, they have this mix of Turkish and Austrian culture, and this created its own genre of music called izvorna muzika. Music that comes from a spring. It's usually about getting drunk, having a party, and cheating on your spouse. This song is a little bit more modern interpretation of that, which I think would qualify it to go into the musical genre of turbo folk. This particular song is called Techno Krajsnik. Link in the description. And it's generally about a man who's looking for respect, but does it in a very self-destructive way. So the story of the song is that he takes a bunch of drugs, stays up for several days, starts driving drunk, and then makes several weird claims. Like, he can dance a circle dance to the level of 10 Gucci's. And he starts making a whole goat for the express purpose of no one eating it just to have the status. It really is a wild song. Please enjoy while I show you the bizarre smoke-induced hellscape that is Edmonton right now.
Ako može.